Hi guys, welcome back to Hither TMD in O gauge. Well, with the near completion of the 60 there, time to move on to another project. Well, who finishes the project anyway? Seriousness though, just got to wait for some transfers. I forgot that I haven't got the tops data panels and the brush badges, builders plates, things to go on the cab sides. And once those come along, then I'll finish spraying the roof and varnish it. But up until then, it's time to move on. Now I'm still delaying doing the shed building. I keep putting it off, I know. But hey, I've got something else that I've put off for a long time now. We're going to get back on with the YOB part 2. Way back in the mist of times. It's been on my bench so long. But anyway, we're going to progress it. So what we're going to look at now is modifying the chassis. So if you join me on the workbench, I'll take you through what the plan is from here. Ta-da! The YOB, where we got to well over a year ago and then sat it at the back of the bench. So what was the issue? Well, we know the kit is undersized and I'm not too worried about that. It's just a means of playing and having something extra on the layout. Whether I keep it in the long run or sell it on after we've done all this, who knows. But anyway, what we're going to be doing. First off, take these bits off that I never glued on. These two are on. The chassis is a banana. And it was that shape. I tried warming it up, soaking it in hot water, cooling it and everything, and couldn't get it straight. So what I have done, as you can probably tell here, I have cut the side rail off the chassis. It was a resin moulded part. There's the bits of it there, look, all in the bin. And I have sanded flat all the panels here. I had to break off the original boxes that I had fitted previously under the vehicle. This one being that one there, but we'll make some new ones of those up, no problem, and repair what we have. So what I'm going to do now then, to straighten this all up via the internet auction site that we all love, I bought some brass channel. It's a fraction deeper than the original was, but I'm not that worried, and I'm going to make a brass chassis to go underneath. Now it's basically going to be quite simple. It's going to be two side channels here, obviously cut to length, no point sticking them out like the handles of a wheelbarrow. And from these two parts I'm going to make two crossbars to go in there. We're going to make it, solder it because it's stronger than glue, and then once it's in we shall glue it onto the chassis here, which should then pull the floor nice and straight, because it was never going to run like the banana that it was. Great Western had a flying banana, but that had nothing on this. So first off, we're going to do some measuring with my engineer's rule, as close as I can get it, straight as I can get it, held against the chassis. We can do fettling afterwards, that's no real problem, but I measure that being, oh my eyes, 21 and 1, so 211 millimeters on this side. We'll just compare the other side because it's a resin thing. I have no idea how accurate it is, and I reckon 211 millimeters is close enough on both sides. We can trim and fettle it. Now what I have here is a piece of wood that I'm going to use for a jig, so that I can draw it out, make a little template and make sure it is all square. Engineer square. one small engineer's square. So I'm going to use my pencil, which I do have actually this time. I'm going to draw a line to represent one buffer beam. Easy enough. And 211 millimeters down, my eyes are now terrible, is here. I'm going to draw another line. Easy as that. So we're going to measure it, just double check. 211. It should all be square. 211. So we double check that. Now I want these chassis rails. They're going to be laying that way up underneath. You're not going to see them. So from the end, to keep the clearance, these I can use calipers to lay over the top of that. That's 71 3/4 roughly. Just goes to show how accurate everything is. So that is there. And I'll just double check these same from the other end. Oh, look at that, a mile out on that end. So we've got ends. We have differences at both ends, and this one is just under 78 millimeters. So I now have two marks for the outside edge of the cross rail. So this is the jib end, I think it is, so we'll put that as the jib end. We'll only go together one way when we lay it on top anyway, so that's that. Save measuring this, we'll just put the brass channel across there. Draw down that side, brass channel on this side. Let me draw along there. Ta-da! So all I've now got to do is ensure that my side rails are square. Now, we can just double check that. I'll just bring the square up there. The end of the rule is clean and square. So I'm going to draw a line along there. Well, that looks good. I reckon that looks square. I want the outside edges to tally up with this. Check it's the same both ends, which it is, and we are looking at 47 millimeters. So I'm just going to be lazy again. I'm going to put it on there, one line there. One line there, and join the lines together. So we now have the outside and the two cross rails, and now we want the vertical side this time to make sure we get it the right way around. I'm not going to draw it all along because it's not dead straight, but I'm going to line up the outside edge of the channel. And do the same on the other side. So there we have it drawn out. We have the chassis rails down the side, which will go that way, and the cross rails, which will join in between the two, will go that way, and then we'll just basically solder them together. So to hold everything in place where I want it, a simple jig, I'm going to get some panel pins and I'm going to knock them in here to guide where I want it. But first off, let's cut these to length with my razor saw. For this little job I'm not going to bother with engineer's blue. I'm just going to get a Sharpie marker and colour in just after the 21cm area, just so that I can scribe and I can see the line. Same on this one. This area here. $211. So you will probably have to pardon my head in the way here. Tiny little mark there. With the square, that is my cut line for the razor saw. I'll just mark up this other one and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, there we have it. As you can see, the lines line up. This end down here lines up, so everything is the same. Time to get cutting. Right, one blunt razor saw. I need to get a new one really. Just lost the handle a long time ago. But nevertheless, I'm just hold this at the end of the block here and just merrily saw away. And there we have a chassis rail. Does it fit before I cut the other one? Look at that. Do a little bit of fettling and that'll fit in there beautifully. So now we have the two side rails, it's time to trim the two cross rails. So I'm not going to measure the bits of brass, I'm going to measure between the lines on here. And I can do that to make life easier with vernier calipers. I'm going to use this end because this is going to be my datum end. Everything is from this end. We put the line here first and drew out that way when we done these lines, I think. Bam. All my measurements are from the jib end. So if I bring the caliper down here, I can measure across here. I know that now the back to back measurement is a shaving over 40 millimeters. what will make this easy is I can get to my blue Sharpie, go here, I'm using the square end from the factory because it is square, I've checked it already. And I can go it is there, it is here, oh, it is here. There. And there. Redraw this one because you can't really see it. Just on the corner, so I now get my square, which is getting buried under all the other tools here. Got my scriber, just never find anything. We can now draw the line square all the way across. And time for more sawing. Of course, you've got to remember which side of the line you're cutting this time. It's this side of the line. And here we have the basic ladder chassis that's going to fit underneath. Simple as. So what I'm going to do now is put some pins in to hold everything in place where I want it to be, so that we can come along and solder these 4 joints together. Okay, so I don't know if you can see now, I've hammered in a load of track pins. I've got 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 3 there and 3 on here. Now the object of the exercise is these 3 here trap in the cross rails and just hold it in position on the line. That's all it needs to do. The pin at the end here is to be a bump stop, and then I just slide down between these 2 trap pins, those 2 trap pins, all the way down to the end, and then I'll do the same on this side, through these 2, round the cross rail, squeeze it through these 2, which are a bit tight, nice and snug, and it's just to hold it in place while we solder it. And that's it. So these can't go anywhere, they're in there. The side rails are held nice and tight, and they're up against the bump stop on the line, so I know it's square. So what I'm going to do is just slide these back out again. I'm going to clean these areas with some emery cloth, apply some flux, and we're ready to solder the chassis into place. So there we have it, we have these 4 areas all cleaned up, ready for soldering. So I'm just going to pause for a quick cup of tea, and then we'll get on, put the flux on and get it all joined up. Right, so I've got myself organised, I've got my solder, resin cord, but also I'm going to add some flux as well, just to assist whilst the iron is heating up. So it doesn't need much, just a tiny little tiny little smear on the end, both sides. And down the side there, just to make sure. And that should be enough, I reckon. There we go. So it could probably do with a bigger size iron, but this is all I've got, so I'm actually just going to warm that through and apply some solder. Yep, definitely need a hotter iron. I'll give it some help with my gas iron. Get a bit of warmth into it. And there we go, that's flowing better. Where there's a will, there's a way. Well, that worked quite nicely actually. A big blob of solder on the iron. I reckon that'll do beautifully. So the solder has flowed around the corners. Just getting just a little bit down in there. Yeah, this soldering iron definitely isn't big enough to heat that great big area. But we are flowed. We have some nice coverage of solder. So give it a couple of minutes to cool down, then I'm going to take this out and go and give it a wash. One ladder chassis. It's come out quite well. It's nice and strong. It's really good. It's straight that way as well. I've had a little measure, so now we've got to see how well it fits and goes that way on. I'm going to have to just gently file off a tiny little bit off of that end, and that will bring it all in come up the right way would help, of course. Let's have another look. So yeah, got a little bit to take off this end so that it fits in clear. The width is good and it makes it straight. And there we have it. One chassis cleaned up, ready to glue into place. All trimmed, it just slots in there nicely. It'll be very nice. So I shall get my super glue out, my high strength super glue, and we'll run super glue along the two chassis rails. And this one. Spread it around so it's even, covers everything. Hopefully not too much on my fingers. Nice and even. Get it the right way around. Get it in there. And I'll get my clamps. Clamp it down. Some pegs. They work just as well. And we'll just give that a little bit of time to go off. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here we have a straight YOB chassis. So, simple, basic construction, just bits of brass channel, job done. So, I'm now going to get on with mounting the bogies, but that'll be for next time. So, any questions, chuck them in the comments, you know the drill, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Enjoy modelling. See ya.